So as an extension of that, then there's a insecure rivalry or secure attachment, secure development. We develop the capacity to temporarily suspend the meeting of our own needs. So it's connected to taking turns. And secure attachment fosters our ability to suspend our own needs until we've assessed and judged whose needs are more urgent. So it obviously requires an evaluation. Are your needs more pressing than mine? Are mine more than you? Whose am I going to prioritize? And in a secure attachment, the suspension is temporary. So it doesn't lead to a more permanent repression, because what isn't healthy is when you see partners where one person is nearly always the one to put their needs to one side to attend to the other. Then you've got an imbalance in terms of who is caregiving and who is care seeking. So I'm talking about a thought out, conscious, temporary suspension of my needs in order to attend to the other. And then when they're in a better place, to ask for them to attend to me and my hurt. So we stay in touch with what we need, and we seek care as soon as it feels appropriate to do so. And I see this working with brothers and sisters too, that it's just, he doesn't understand me, she doesn't understand me. And I think this capacity to take turns and to suspend ourselves becomes really important. So within that as well, in terms of secure attachment, there's an awareness of space sharing. And this is a really important development from being able to take turns, being able to suspend our own needs. So we take specific incidents of taking a turn and we contain our own needs. And this is what Daniel Stern calls a rig, a representation of interaction. I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Stern's work, but he talks, they're a bit like internal working models, about representation of interactions that have become generalized. So the way attachment works is, if we have several interactions where, let's say, our mother or our father attends to our needs, we form a general feeling that our needs will be met later on in life. So that's the way the brain works. So through a few secure experiences of sibling rivalry, we then learn that generally conflict is resolvable, and generally we know how to do it. So then when we come across conflict with friends, or quite often in peers, or psychotherapy trainee peers, we become better able to deal with that kind of conflict. When you're on a training and you're in transference with your peers, and it happens a lot on psychotherapy trainings because they're quite intense situations, there will nearly always be sibling rivalries being played out, and how you manage your sibling rivalry often will be present in the psychotherapy training room or present with your peers at work. And I think typically a lot of attention has been paid to mother-father transferences, but actually there are lots of sibling transferences in those kind of setups. Of course, whether we grow up with siblings or not, these are really important skills to develop. You get plenty of opportunities with siblings. When we don't have siblings, often the lessons are learned with classmates in school. So I think with single, when you're a single child and you go to school and you haven't had to negotiate the sharing of all these things tend to get negotiated in the playground and with your schoolmates. I'm going to talk a little bit more about being an only child later on as well. So that's sort of what secure sibling rivalry looks like, and it's what secure attachment enables us to develop from sibling rivalry. I want to talk a little bit more now about avoidant rivalry. Parents who cultivate, not deliberately, but who cultivate a family culture of dismissing feelings will almost always raise children who are also avoidantly attached, both to them as primary caregivers, but also to each other. So if both parents are avoidantly attached, it's inevitable that the children will also be avoidantly attached. I often get asked, well, what happens if you've got one avoidant parent and maybe one preoccupied parent? Typically, the parent that the child spends the most time with will have an impact on the child's attachment pattern, typically. It's usually still the mother rather than the father in a straight relationship, but it will be the parent that is most looking after the kids. And typically there'll be a more dominant sort of family pattern of avoidance or preoccupation. But certainly if you're talking about parents who are more on the avoidance side, who have a culture of not really valuing feelings of dependency and who are quite keen to have their kids being quite independently minded, these children, so the siblings, brothers and sisters, they bury their needs and they become less and less aware of them. Now, when they're buried, these needs, several things happen that impact on a healthy expression of rivalry. What happens is that the care-seeking system, or the ability to seek care, because it gets slowly denied, it develops often into defensive caregiving. Now, probably a lot of you will identify this in yourselves, that for those of you who had attachment needs that were not met by your parents, you've now become professionals in how to give care. This happens an awful lot with women. And I think that's partly why the profession is so full of women, because when our needs are denied, often we defensively give care instead. So you will often see a daughter turning into a caregiver for a sibling in place of competing with them. And it's a compulsive caregiving, and that becomes the dominant system. And what happens when that becomes very dominant is and it is often girls, their care seeking just goes out of operation.